Right guys, Mark Crossfield here, and today I'm going to recap with a couple of guys I did some lessons with in Vegas when we went to the USA with Game Golf. Two lucky winners won a chance for a lesson with myself using Game Golf. We're going to see if I was actually able to improve them or not. This is the beauty of this system. Not only works for you as an amateur to monitor and look at your own data, it helps me as a coach to see if my job is worth doing, if I am actually doing a job which is helping students. So we've got some data from both students. This is the recap with Brandon and Steve. One's on iron, one's on driver. Let's get stuck in. Right, so we're going to start with Brandon. Brandon was, we used predominantly, it was an iron lesson for Brandon that you saw. He was struggling with quite a steep angle of attack with his irons. He was struggling with strike, catching the ground early quite a lot. So if we look at his distances or his stats, if you like, from the Game Golf system, between 125 and 150 yards. So the beauty with this system, obviously you can really try and dial into some precise distances to work out where you're dropping shots. We saw that Brandon was missing short 36% of the time. So he was 36% short between 125 and 150 yards. He complained of a lot of fat shots, and that was backing that up. He was missing left and right a little bit, but not too much. He was relatively accurate. 38% of his shots were within 15 yards, because it's kind of a key area you'd want to get into to make your pars and birdie chances. Now, he sent me his stats from all his rounds post lesson. Left and right, again, very small, 12%. He was 12% miss left before the lesson, 4% right, 6% right. So that's not really changed his left and right particularly. He's now 51% within 15 yards compared to 38. So that's a fantastic change. And he's only 21% short where he was 36% short. And Brandon did mention that he didn't see a change after the lesson and the ideas that I gave him, that he was getting distances a bit better, quality of strike was improving. I had a phone call with him. I took some notes here. He's saying that his club selection was much better since we did a challenge video where I challenged him to strike some balls from that yardage, and quite clearly we saw his clubs he was choosing weren't really on the money, so I helped him a bit there too. He still feels he needs low point practice. He still feels like he could improve his low point. He doesn't know if he is improving it or not. Obviously his data is edging him that way, but I think this is over something like 30 rounds he's done since we've played, so he's an active golfer. So I advised him to, go and find someone who uses measuring devices to see where his angle of attack is and practice the feelings that he's feeling to change his angle of attack and his low point, and actually see if they are measured and working. But his stats there with Game Golf definitely going the right way, which is fantastic to see. Now, if we go distance 175 to 200 yards here, let me find it on his, which is here as well. So he was 37% within 15 yards. He's now 39%. I wouldn't say that's particularly, you could argue that's better, but you could be cutting that up on the rounds. Very, very similar. 25% short he is now, where he was 27% short. So again, a very small move. As a coach personally, I would like to see a bigger shift in that number, but it's a very difficult number to shift. That 175 to 200 yards point for all amateurs is a number that's really, really tough. But what I love, Brandon's in America, I'm here in the UK. Obviously, I went over and helped him, thanks, courtesy of Game Golf. They set up the competition. And just with a Skype call and then him sending me some data, I can really help him. And we've had a conversation. Hopefully I've given him a few more ideas of how to keep improving. And that is the beauty of things like game and the technology these days, which often people are moaning about. I only see it as a positive if it's used in a right way or in a constructive way. And me as a coach, using those kind of numbers there, the real kind of backup that what I've said is having an effect with a student, it's great for me and it's fantastic for them. Let's check out what Steve's up to. So when we looked at Steve's Game Golf stats originally in Vegas, we saw, for a guy who was pretty fit, pretty strong, As I said in the first video, he's a soldier, so he's looking after his body. He was driving average at 237, and I just felt like maybe he could squeeze a bit more out of that. His miss was predominantly to the right. You might remember we were trying to get him to try and calm down the cut. So we spoke to Steve, and he sent me some of his new data since the lesson. Now, the thing which is interesting with Steve, and he pointed this out, and I think it's a very interesting point as well, he has changed his driver. So what Game Golf does, which is fantastic, is you can tag the clubs. You don't just have to call it driver, you can make it a specific club. And he has sent me the numbers with his new driver as well. And a lot of his distance, he feels, is coming from the new driver. He's getting a different spin rate and a different launch, and he feels like he's getting a few more extra yards. Now, I would totally agree with that for him, or any golfer. If he is maximising out his equipment, he's definitely going to find some extra yards. So what we're seeing on his data now is he's 250 yards average drive, where before he was averaging 237. He is putting that down to his driver and a combination of the swing fort. I would put it down hopefully to a bit of both, but I think the driver's going to have as a bigger effect as whatever I told him as well. Because if we look at his data, he's now missing 37% on the right. He was only missing 29% on the right. So how much I've helped him there, I would argue, is limited, maybe giving him a few extra yards. The positive I would draw from his data, he's only missing 18% on the left. He was missing 22% on the left. So we are moving his miss more to one side, and for me personally that is very, very important. All the best players in the world have a miss. It's how they manage it, as people will laugh when I say the thing, manage your misses. Good players are able to do that. The more we move Steve's miss into one side, the better he'll be, because when there's trouble on that side he can defend, and when there isn't, it's on the other side, he can still attack and go for his 250 yards and his 313, which is his longest one. He's 45% of fairways hit now, where he was 49. So he's gaining distance, but he's losing accuracy, you could argue, a little bit there. And that's very common when you start hitting the ball further. It's harder to hit the fairway to a certain extent. The angles and what have you are becoming slightly narrower. Now with Steve, he mentioned he uses the swing fort that I gave him very much in situation. So wind off the left, he'll really improve the kind of locky flick ideas that we were giving him. He'll really apply them to try and calm down how much he misses to the right. He's also mentioned he has a third child, which, congratulations Steve, on the way. So his golf has been limited since the lesson, so very hard for him to carry on working as a dad, as a husband, as a golfer, and on obviously the lesson. I feel like we gave Steve some great weapons for him to improve, and I think giving him the time he'll do it no problem, because he's a very applied individual. I think he'll be able to do that very easily. Combination of a driver change and hopefully launch and spin changes a bit with that different delivery is giving him the extra distance that we both wanted to go for. I just would love to see those misses to the right calming down a bit more. That's where he's really going to see some confidence and improvement off the tee. And again, game golf for me, I don't mind if I move the stats the right way or the wrong way, or they stay. What it shows me is if I am being effective or not. And if I'm not being effective, let's get you back in. Let's give you a different thought. Let's try and make a different idea effective. I want to be measured. All coaches should want to be measured as much as your performance and your equipment wants to be measured. I'm never going to say I'm right for an individual student. It's much more about trying to kind of stimulate, tick the right boxes with those students to make those numbers change. And it doesn't matter what the sentence is. It's finding that sentence that, like I say, it just turns them on to find a field to hit that fairway. So more work to do with Steve. Hopefully I'll stay in contact with him a bit longer, and maybe he can get some lessons back in the States to try and just progress that feeling a bit more. Great to see the extra distance. Obviously a bit coming from the club as well, I would argue, as well as hopefully me, but still need to calm those rights down. Game golf is showing how good or bad I am, as well as the equipment, and that's what I love about it. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Periscope, all the normal social places. Also, come and visit my new website, markcrossfieldgolf.com. See you over there.